Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I am doing a book review on Earth by Brinn. This book is a science fiction whereby a microscopic black hole has accidentally fallen into the Earth's core, threatening to destroy the entire planet within 2 years. And it follows the scientists who try to stop this black hole from destroying the entire Earth. I have been recommended this book repeatedly over the last year and a half, whenever I go up to Duluth, by my uncle, because this is one of his all-time favorite books after Lord of the Rings. But he loves this book, thoroughly enjoys it, and having read it, I absolutely understand why. Like I said, this book follows a group of scientists who try to prevent a black hole from devouring the Earth. It's written in 1990 and then set in 2040, so it's not actually that far away, and I loved the acknowledgements or the author's note at the end because it talks about how the 50-year mark, which in 1990, 2040 would have been 50 years for him, is a very delicate place to set a science fiction. It can't be, something set technologically 3,000 years from now with outrageous technology. The technology that you put into a science fiction 50 years from now has to be able to be extrapolated from the technology that we have now. I'm not a scientific person. I don't understand physics. I don't understand really any science. I enjoy learning some of it. I tried it. It's fun, but it's not my thing, and I thoroughly admire people who do. That said, the science in this book was mostly understandable. I won't say it was all understandable because I think you need some sort of basic idea of physics to really get into the nitty-gritty of the extrapolation of the science. However, you didn't need a basis in physics to read, enjoy, and understand this book. Also, if you are a fan of Illuminae, mind you, I have not read Illuminae, and it's probably not a book I'm going to read, as I mentioned in my booktube classics I haven't read, but from what I've heard about Illuminae and having read this book also has some different formats in it. For example, it's got some pictures in it, graphs. It also has different they're news articles almost, but it has little blurbs from news articles occasionally, because the technology in this has the internet as this massive, absolutely instantaneous abyss of information, 10 times greater than even what we have today in 2019. That was fascinating to me as well, to look at this and see the technology that Brinn extrapolated in 1990 and realize how close we've actually gotten to it. Mind you, I don't know how close we've gotten to creating black holes, because that's a very important part of this story. Again, not a scientist, but we probably are somewhat close to creating them. I mean, we just took a picture of a black hole, for heaven's sakes. So I loved the multi-formatted sort of aspect of this book as well. I thought it was fascinating. We follow many different perspectives as well. It's a little bit hard to realize how they all connect for the first 50 pages or so, because there are so many of them, but he very quickly draws together the ties that bind, so to speak. Also, representation in this book is fantastic. I am not actually sure if any of the characters were white, and I loved it. I think there might have been a white character, I don't know, I don't care. But first of all, one of the main scientists is a Maori scientist from New Zealand. There is a traditional Maori woman in this, her name is Auntie Kapoor. But yeah, there's her. There is an American from Texas, again unclear as far as race. There is a Brit. Everybody. It is set in Africa, New Zealand, Easter Island, which is called Rapa Nui in this book, because that is apparently its traditional Aboriginal name, as opposed to the name that the white people gave it. I loved that aspect of it. I think that was probably one of my favorite parts of this book, was just reading the representation and the respect for the earth and the cultures of the people that are on it. Also, the ending, without spoiling it, threw me, because mother of pearl, I did not see that coming. As you may also have noticed, I tabbed this book. This was the second book that I annotated because I wanted to be able to discuss it with my uncle in some depth, because he has a really good memory and I think he's read it more than once. So it made sense for me to tab it, since this is my first time reading it, and be able to discuss it with him in depth. So hopefully I'll be able to do that the weekend this video goes up. I don't know if I've explained my tabbing system to you. I should do that. But orange is my snarky comments, because I am a very sarcastic person, and so there's a fair number of them. Purple is more of pop culture references and personal references. So if there's something that comes up that I think, oh, my sister and I did that, I mean, which obviously think it happened in this book, but something along those lines, or hey, that makes me think of this song, then I put a purple one there. Green is historical references, and there's a fair number of them in here. For example, decades is soon enough to restore the ozone layer, because that's another thing in this. He extrapolates the environmental problems that they were having in 1990 to 2040, and we're seeing them now. Plastic has taken over the ocean, the ozone layer is dying, global warming is a big thing, and as he says in the acknowledgements, he takes it farther than science actually had it going at the time. And obviously in 2019 we don't know how fast or how far, but we can guess, and scientists don't and didn't think that global warming would have flooded as much as David Brinn has it doing, but for the sake of science fiction, he did it. Anyway, so green is historical references like that, blue is quotes, and pink is questions that I have, whether those be the definition of a word or this one is sort of a pink-orange combo. I have underlined, anyway, do billions really need to die in order to save the world? And then I have a comment that said Genghis did it unintentionally, because Genghis Khan, when he went on his many rampages, killed millions of people, enough to set global warming back significantly. Which, first of all, I find fascinating. I didn't really put it together until I heard that fact a couple years ago, but it's also highly entertaining. This book also has a lot of just good wording. For example, Simon's got delusions of adequacy. Usually you hear delusions of grandeur, but this guy's just got delusions of adequacy, you know? And I loved that. The descriptions were absolutely beautiful. He has people living, like I said, all over. He's got Greenland, New Zealand, South Africa, which was also just fun. He has animals that have died out, and so we have to try and save them. There's just so much in this book that is truly amazing. Oh, and languages. They have a whole long discussion on languages that I loved, and this is a quote. It says, "Who says 2 languages are enough? How does the saying go? A man with only one ethnicity stands on just one leg." I'm very big on speaking multiple languages, and I only speak 2, and I would absolutely adore to speak more. It's just one of those things where there's not enough time in the day. That should give you a hint of how much is really packed into this book. So the basics: science fiction, pseudo-multi-format, because it is predominantly in a narrative form. It just sticks in graphs and pictures and news clippings and transcripts of audio files. Not occasionally, it does it fairly frequently. It also has at the beginning of each part, it sort of discusses in italics a very abstract description of the planet and what's happened to it, and I found that interesting to watch as the book went along. But back to the basics: science fiction, pseudo-multi-format, fantastic representation, amazing science, because David Brinn is also actually a physicist and has consulted for NASA, which is amazing. Who would think he would write a book? And ending that blew me away. So if any of those 5 basics sound good to you, then absolutely read this book. I cannot believe I had not read it before, except that I hadn't heard of it until my uncle told me. Love this book and cannot recommend it enough. I will not spoil anything because that is part of the excitement of this book, but like I said, if there's this many tabs, well, I haven't said this, if there's this many tabs, it must be a good book. There are so many good quotes. The relationships develop perfectly, and it is beautiful to watch them. And to watch Brinn tie together all of the little hints he drops. By the 2 pages before he drops the bomb on you about the ending, you've figured it out, but when you figured it out, he's telling you what it is at the same time. And I loved that I couldn't figure it out. I loved how everybody was related and how everybody dealt with these things differently. There's different ages in this as well. There's a woman who's in her 90s who was a scientist. One of the main characters is in his 20s or 30s. Several of them are in their 40s and 50s. There's one kid who's maybe 19 or 20. And you just follow all of them throughout the entire world and watch them fight this war against something they can't see while they try to figure out science that they've only just broken the surface of. As I've said multiple times in this video, I loved this book. Cannot recommend it enough. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I will let you know my answers. But definitely read it. I gave it 5 out of 5. That's all I have for my review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.